read the citation of Dr. Idowu A. Atoloye. Thank you for this opportunity. Dr. Idowu A. Atoloye is an assistant professor of soil science. He's a soil earth scientist with extensive experience in developing competitive research proposals for federal, international, and foundation sponsors. Dr. Atoloye has served as principal investigator or co-principal investigator on 7 funded projects, securing almost $1 million in external research and education funding from agencies including United States, Department of Agriculture, Food and Agriculture, USDA, NIFA, United States Agency for International Development, USAID, the U.S. Department of Education, Title III, United States Mission to Africa, and the Department of Energy through the Environmental Molecular Sciences Laboratory. It brings a strong reviewer side perspective to proposal development, having served on multiple USDA, NIFA, Agriculture and Food Research Initiative, AFRI, Grant Review Panel, as a Foundation for Food and Agriculture Research, FFAR, Grant Reviewer, and as a reviewer for competitive internal and external funding programs. His experience spans both research intensive and capacity building grants, including interdisciplinary, international focus programs. Dr. Atoloye is also an associate editor for the Soil Science Society of America Journal. His talk draws on examples from both successful and unsuccessful proposals, offering practical guidance on proposal narrative development, budget justification, and common pitfalls in grant application. So I have this singular honor to present to you our erudite scholar, Dr. Idowu Atoloye, for this workshop. Thank you. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. And I truly appreciate the introduction. And I also want to appreciate the leadership of the ASPI Institute for extending the invitation to me to present to everyone today. And as mentioned, for today, I'll be mainly focusing on some tips for developing competitive research proposals. And a key part of the talk today will be related to budget development. I know quite a few of us has had the opportunity of developing research proposals, and quite a number of us might be at the early stages of our career. And that said, for my talk, it is my hope that at the end, we will be able to gain an understanding of what panelists, reviewers looks for when it comes to them reviewing different proposals, and also have a detailed insight into what a good budget should actually look like. To begin with, I would like to just do a quick survey. You can take your phones out and scan the QR code on the screen and respond to that question to start with. I would like to have a view of what we think of when it comes to reviewing of proposals. And here, what you just have to do is just rank it in order of priority. If you are meant to look at a proposal, which sections do you think will be most important and which sections do you think will be least important? If you can rank that in order of priority in the next 1 minute. Can we all access the page? You can give me a thumbs up if you can access the page.
Yes, I can access the page.
Okay, thank you. Let's complete that and see where we think what we think about it when it comes to proposals. Okay. Well, if we're done with that, I'll present the results of this for us later on as we move on. I'll present the results of what our ranking is as we move on. Okay, when it comes to proposals, there are different sections that are there. And some of the sections that I've highlighted in this short interaction, I'm going to talk about them today. The key sections when you talk about a proposal in general are the summary, which can also go along with the introduction, but sometimes you have the summary standing alone, and you can see those two pieces actually connecting together, the summary and introduction. You have your problem statement, or what we call the background section as well, which sometimes, depending on how we see it, could be sometimes substituted for the introduction section as well. You have your methodology, the budget justification, the team, and the timeline. So for today's talk, I will be focusing mostly on the problem statement / background section. I will talk about the team, the relevance of that, and I will also talk about the budget justification aspect of it. And I have another short survey that I just want to take on as we move on. And like I said, I'll present the result of the first one as we get to the end later on. So to start with, I would like us to take this also that imagine yourself being part of a panelist and you've been tasked with reviewing 12 proposals. I would say that, for example, in this last cycle that we had a review, I was tasked with reviewing almost 15 proposals. And now you see yourself as a panelist trying to review 12 proposals. My quick question to you is, as you read those proposals, what are the things that will frustrate you most? Or which one here will frustrate you most as a reviewer trying to read an 18-page proposal, excluding the budget, the CVs of the principal investigators, the timeline and other aspects, and you just have an 18-page narrative of 12 different proposals that you have to read? Which one of these would frustrate you most as a reviewer? Okay. Some people's okay. Only 2 responses submitted. We can try and submit responses. Let's see what will frustrate you most as a reviewer trying to get through 12 proposals of 18 pages. If more people could respond, we have 4 responses currently. And okay, that's a balance between too much jargons and over-ambitious scope. And yes, those are 2 very important criteria that are there: too much jargons and over-ambitious scope. Now, one of the things that I included, one of the options that I added was budget. And I saw that not a lot of people actually selected that. And I will share an experience as we go on of how that actually impacted one of the proposals that I was able to participate in the review just some few months ago. So generally, we can see that when we talk about proposal review, even we don't like too much jargons, right? We don't want a lot of jargons in it, and we don't want it to be too ambitious. And that leads me to 10 major reasons why proposals or projects generally fail. 10 major reasons. I won't spend much time on this, but I just put it up just to show us that 10 major reasons why it fails majorly. When the goal is unclear, it does not demonstrate a good planning, not clearly written, or the scope is too much, you have inaccurate cost. So there are a number of reasons why the proposals can actually go wrong and not get funded. And clarity is very, very important. Here is an example of a feedback which I received from one of the proposals I had submitted. This proposal was eventually funded, but the reviewers gave me a very, very good feedback. And one of the key feedback that they mentioned was there were so many jargons in it, which is related to what we had selected earlier, right? So much jargons, because sometimes the people that review your proposals are not necessarily experts in your field of research. There could be an animal scientist, but in this case, perhaps somebody focusing on swine, and here you're focusing on poultry. The person may not have extensive knowledge in that particular area where you're doing that particular work, or perhaps I may be on a panel as a soil scientist and I've been assigned a proposal from environmental science or ecology. We might think they are very similar, but you'll be surprised at how unaware a soil scientist might be when it comes to some research in ecology or environmental science. So trying to put clarity into it is very, very important. And this ties into one of the options we selected earlier, which was the avoidance of jargons as we actually write. Reviewers want to gain a good understanding. They want to see clarity right from the go as you write that particular work. And I had put something in green bar just below right here, which says that Surface talks about that if I was to write this particular proposal, how would I have particularly changed that sentence in that proposal? I would have described it in a more concise fashion that's easy for those reviewers to understand it and avoid those technical jargons in it. As I mentioned at the start, I said I'll focus on three main aspects: the background, your team, and budget. Those are the three main components I'm going to talk about today: the background, your team, and the budget. What is the main purpose of the background? When you're trying to write that proposal, you want to demonstrate to the panelists that you are up to date with the literature. And not just the literature, but important literature for that particular work that you're doing. You want to use it to address gaps in knowledge. And you show that, oh, my work is going to address X and Y gaps in this particular area of research. I'll give an example of an experience I had. There was a proposal that we had worked on with team members. And one of our goals was to complete a particular task that the funding agency has already done. In that situation, if we include that in our background to do a work that they have already done, I can tell you that the reviewers would not look at that kindly, because that shows that we are not up to date with the pertinent literature or the activities that has been done. We're able to highlight what they have done, the work they have done, the results that they had from their particular research, and we're able to leverage on that and saying this is what we are going to do, rather than having a repetition of what they have done. Depending on the agency or the organization, some organizations would have gone ahead and do some preliminary work, and they're now looking for people to come in and address questions based on the preliminary work or output that they have done. In some cases, you have the opportunity of just developing your own research without referring to any preliminary work done by the agency. I have more experience working with funding agencies in the US, and I will describe two. The first one is what we call NIFA, National Institute of Food and Agriculture. For that particular agency, they put out a call, and it's your responsibility as the investigator to do your research and identify the gap, identify the pertinent literature, and propose what you're going to do. Another organization is what we call the FFAR, the Foundation for Food and Agricultural Research. Sometimes this agency puts out a call, and when they put out the call, they describe what they want the investigators to look at. And in fact, sometimes they refer you to some of the literature that they have out there or past work that have been done. So in that case, when you are trying to submit for this agency, you have to show or demonstrate that, yes, you are aware of what has been done before and you are moving the knowledge forward and not trying to repeat what has been done before. So the background section is very, very important, is very, very key. And being able to write this very, very clearly goes a long way in determining if that reviewer will be interested in reading the other sections of a proposal. This is the first section that comes to the reviewer, the background section. And it is a very, very important one. And that is why good time must be spent in trying to make sure that that section is well polished, not only with words, but with key figures and data as well. As you write the background section, it's important to always have in mind that you start broadly, thinking about the triangle way, just like an introduction in an article. You always start broadly because you want to generate the interest of the reviewers in what you're doing or what you propose to do, and mentioning why it's very important. Very, very, very important is that you don't allow your reviewers to guess. Try and avoid that. You don't want your readers to guess at all. You want to explain from the word go why that work is important in the background section. And some things that I like to use, I learned that from some of my mentors and I adopted that, and I think it's very good. It works very well, is learning to use bolds and italics. Sometimes if you're writing that particular sentence, you want to use a bold there or an italic to draw the attention of the reviewer to that particular sentence or statement. So as you write the proposal, like I said, it's important to start broadly, including key statements on why that work is important, why should they care about it. And you want to make it very interesting. You don't want to start off with a lot of jargons when you're trying to write that, when I'm trying to write this section. And you want it to flow very logically. Now, a key point or a key aspect of a background section when you talk about your proposal development is preliminary data. When you're trying to put that research together, you want to show the reviewers that, yes, I can do this work. I have experience in doing this work. I have done something related to this work that I want to do. And the only way you can do that is by demonstrating that you have preliminary data. When we talk about preliminary data, it simply means published work or ongoing work that you have in your research currently. It could be either of the two. Agencies want to see, or organizations want to see that, yes, if you say you want to do this particular task, you can really do it. If you say you want to inoculate with X, Y, and Z bacteria, yes, you can really do that inoculation. If you say you have the space to do that work, they want to see that demonstration. And that comes from the preliminary data. It is a very important aspect. And when you have this preliminary data there, it's not just about you adding the figures there and say, okay, I've done this X, Y, and Z before, I have done this before. No, you have to really integrate it into your background as you're writing. Perhaps you have your opening sentence or your title sentence, and you can then cite a work that you've done. X, Y, and Z has shown that when we use biochar with compost, or when we use biochar with compost, we observe that this has changed and this reduced this in this particular place. And you don't want to be ambiguous when trying to detail your preliminary data. You want to be specific. You want to say what you've done, where you have done it, how you have done it, or what results you got. Now, you don't have to go into all these details, but you have to really show that connection between what you want to do and what you've done before. That helps establish credibility for the work you want to do. And as I have it down here, the main goal of this is to minimize the risk that the work you are going to do will fail or is not going to fail. You want to minimize the risk of failure. You want to tell the reviewers that, see, I have everything in place and there's a very, very low probability or percentage that I would not be able to do this work. Agencies or organizations don't want to put money out there and discover that, oh, what we've put money out for is actually a failure. They want to get results from that work. And the one way you can become competitive, that you can win the heart of the reviewers or the agencies funding that work, is to integrate your preliminary data that shows alignment with the proposed work. Not just any data. For example, I have had to work with research when it comes to, let's say, biochar, and I have another research. Perhaps this funding agency is looking for somebody who has worked with nutrient sensors. It would be wrong for me to be stating my work on compost or biochar when it comes to those nutrient sensors if there's no alignment there. If you have not worked with a data logger before, you've not implemented nutrient sensors in the field, you've not collected data from there, then there'll be a lot of misalignment in that case. And the first thing that will flag is that, well, this particular person does not have the technical skills to complete the proposed research. And as I said, the main goal is to minimize the risk. Every research comes with a risk, but how well can you handle that risk? That is demonstrated partly in the preliminary data that you present. Now, when using preliminary data in terms of proposal development, key things to keep in mind: does your preliminary data, does it support your hypothesis? I would say that a lot of the funding by the USDA NIFA, which is a US organization here in the United States, a lot of the things that, or one of the key things that they look at is they want to see that the data that you've gotten before, how does it advance science? How does it support what you propose to do? What did you learn from it that led to the new questions that you're trying to ask? That is very, very important. So make sure that preliminary data is supporting that. Even if you're writing to European Union agencies or you're writing to global NGOs, you want to still demonstrate that, yes, I have done a related work. These are the things that we've observed, and this is why we are proposing to extend this particular work. Secondly, make sure it showcases the manageability of the proposed research. Although a lot of this comes in when it comes to the meta section, but you can still demonstrate that as you write it, because when they say, oh, you want to work with X, Y, and Z, and you have the results on X, Y, and Z, and you've tried it in different locations, it shows that, yes, you can manage that research that you're proposing because you have results that have shown that you've done it in different places. And also, it helps to demonstrate that what you want to do aligns with the agency priorities. There are several agencies that fund research in the United States. We have the Department of Energy, we have the Department of Education, we have the USDA NIFA, we have the National Institute of Health, NIH, we have the National Science Foundation, and they have different scopes. If I have a research that is focused mainly towards basic research, and I'm submitting that to an agency like the USDA, whereby they want an applied research, it is not going to fly. Or if I have an applied research that I want to work with farmers, I want to work with youths, I want to work with the community, and I'm supplying that to the NSF, whereby they're interested in basic research, it's not going to fly. So preliminary data will help you to position your work that it aligns with the agency priorities, whether it's the European Union or it is international governmental organizations. And when doing this, it's very important that don't just put in the numbers there. If you can make charts, beautiful ones, it's very, very good. Spend that quality time, invest that time in making those plots interesting. Because if they are unable to read the plots or read the chart, then of what use is that particular figure in that section. Also, as we develop the background sections, one other aspect that is very key is development of activities. Now, this ties mainly into the method section, mostly not in the preliminary data, but it's a very, very key aspect of it. What activities do you want to do? Now, when reviewers are reading your work, when they go to the background, they see what you've done, they see your preliminary data, they will be able to link that with what you propose to do. If you have some data which are generated by another method, and here you are in your development activities, whereby you're trying to talk about the things you're going to do, and you're using a whole totally different approach, is going to bring about a lot of questions. So making sure that that background aligns well with your proposed activity is very, very important. And in doing this, it's always good to get a piece of paper or get on your computer, write the questions you want to talk about, the things you want to examine, and try and draw that concept diagram. Make that link. Because you don't have to necessarily include everything in what you're trying to do. Like one of the things that was pointed out in the quick survey was ambition, right? If it's too ambitious, it's not going to fly. If it is too ambitious, it's not going to fly because you can't do everything. You cannot do everything. So it requires a lot of thinking and clarity when it comes to this section. So that is very, very important. And I will share feedback that I received from another proposal that I had submitted, which was also funded, but they brought that out for me. And I would say perhaps that proposal maybe did not have a lot of competition as related to other ones, because I would imagine if I had submitted it to a more competitive call, it might not get funded because of this particular comment. Now, here's the feedback which I received. I will read the first and the last sentences. It says the proposed research contains an extensive list of laboratory analysis in order to answer the proposed question. That is a red flag. By them identifying the extensive list, it shows the over-ambition that is there. And one of the things that was added was they wanted to see that the candidate, the method that were to be used, the candidate has that experience or will get more training in there. So they want to see that connection. So as you write the development of activities, it's very, very important to keep this in mind. You don't have to be over ambitious, but you really have to demonstrate this. And one way you can do this, I'll mention it later on, is through your team. And lastly, one aspect I included also in this first aspect of what I'm talking about is telling the review panel about your statistics. When you get the data, when you have it, how are you going to analyze that data? And in your background section, I had mentioned earlier that you have figures. You can put figures there. When you put those figures there, ensure that you add statistics or how you did it. A sentence is fine in doing that. or a part of a sentence is fine in doing that. And that carries over into your development of activities. Nobody wants you to generate massive amount of data without relevance or interpretation or how it's going to be used. So it's a very, very key aspect to always include. When we get this data, this is how we're going to use it. This is how this data that we're getting, this is how it's supporting our hypothesis, and this is how it's supporting our goal. It is not the work of the reviewers to guess the meaning of those data. And possibly you could also include additional steps that, okay, when we get this, we're going to use it this way, and this will inform this. And that helps you to tie the whole story together. The second part of my talk will be developing your team. The team is a very critical part of a research proposal. And I will say, for early career persons, if you're just starting out, you need a lot to do in this case. Because when the review is being done, it is when the team is reviewed, one of the key things that reviewers look for is that team capable of doing the proposed work? Have they done something related? If they're not done something related, that means they're just trying to get in the space in the first instance, and that means there's a high risk of failure. Another thing you want to think about is your team, do they bear a lot of similarities or are they complementary? Your team that you've put together, do they bear a lot of similarities or are they complementary? If I have a proposal and I'm putting 5 computer scientists together, or I'm putting 5 soil scientists or 6 physicists together, they had better be very, very diverse in addressing that question or the proposed work. Because if it shows a lot of similarity, I will tell you that it's not going to move forward as much as it being complementary. And here it's where it becomes very, very important, because as an early career researcher, you have to seek out people who have done prior work that aligns with what you're proposing to do. And you have to demonstrate how the skills or the expertise of the different personnel, how they leverage on one another. So the team is a very, very critical part. And as early career researchers, I would say there's a great opportunity here of working with people that have done, had success in receiving research grants or their research programs, who have made tremendous success. There's a great opportunity in partnering with them. And that really helps a lot. And be ready to do the heavy lift. It's very, very important to keep that in mind. You should be ready to do the heavy lift as you work with people from different fields who have had different successes, because that defines the ability of your team to carry out the project. And it also demonstrates that, yes, we are proposing to do this work, we have what is required, and we are very relevant to what you are intending to do. I was fortunate to be a part of a team, as mentioned during the citation, of a USAID team. And here we have people from different fields: a computer scientist, a food scientist, an agricultural economist, a soil scientist, from different areas. And the key thing there is not just to put everybody together. Please note that. You should not just build a team because, yes, they said we should have multiple teams and diverse and interdisciplinary. So I just want to bring everybody together. No, the key is to demonstrate the complementary benefits of the team members, how they leverage. And here's an example of a feedback that I received from a particular proposal which I had submitted. I was here starting out my career then, which I'm still currently starting as well. And I got this feedback from the panel. They said the candidate proposed to expand experience by working with extension professors as a secondary mentor. Now, I was able to demonstrate that, yes, I want to do this, I don't have the skill to do this, but I'm going to be working with this particular person. And I was able to write that this person has done this work, has done this work, has done this work. He has led this research, he has done these different things, and I'll be working with them in order to achieve this goal. I had my own expertise, my area, and I know that, okay, when it comes to getting the word out there, I'm not an expert there, but I'll be working with this particular person. So your team is a very, very key part. And as you can see, the feedback I received did not touch only on the content of what I want to do, but also looks at who are the people that are going to do that particular work. The last aspect, which I'll be talking about, and we'll spend quite some time, is talking about the budget part. In the survey that we did, that I shared earlier, yeah, we didn't really touch on the budget, but I would talk about it because it's a very, very important aspect. A lot of people sometimes do not pay so much attention to this, but the budget actually reflects your thoughtfulness as an investigator. How clearly have you thought about this project? How clearly have you thought about the limitations of what you want to do? Because funds are not unlimited. You will hardly get a research call or a proposal call that will tell you that, well, just go ahead and propose any amount you want for it. There's always a frame. Maybe in some cases, you could get a lot of money. I know a particular group that got almost $10 million for what they wanted to do. But in that situation, they were called upon and they had their track record that they can do it. But I will tell you that 99.9% of the time, there's always a cap to it. So thinking about your budget is very, very key. Now, keep in mind, the closer that your research plan and your budget align, the more competitive your proposal will be. Your research plan and your budget, the closer they align, the more competitive your proposal will be. If they do not align, reviewers are going to flag it. And I will share an example shortly of what happened during the past panel review, which I was. And somebody brought the case up. And because of that, even though the proposal was well written, was very clear and everything like that, it was flagged. There are two components to a budget. The first one is the budget itself, and the second one is the budget justification. The budget and the budget justification. When we talk about a budget, you see it as a financial roadmap. And keep in mind, most of the costs in your budget are estimates. But make sure that those estimates are actually realistic. It's very, very important. Make sure those estimates are actually realistic. And make sure that they align with the funding agencies. So your budget tells us about the roadmap. How you allocate your funds will let the reviewer know about your priorities and how you intend to do the work you want to do. It might seem very minute, but it's a very critical aspect. As I mentioned, a budget tells the reviewer if your project is realistic, if it's feasible, if it's properly resourced. It helps us know if you can actually translate that research that you intend to do. And it also helps us to know that, yes, you as a principal investigator, you have thought about it from the beginning to the end, from the personnel to the consumables. You have really thought about what you want to do. You've known the limitations and how you're going to do that particular work. Now, what are the different categories of a budget? The different categories of a budget includes the personnel, the travel, equipment, your materials and supplies. If you have any sub-awards, that is, you're giving money to another institution, cost of participants, other direct costs like publications, and also indirect costs. So these are very key categories, and these are just generally universal. And it doesn't mean that you have to have money in every area of it, of the budget, but they're just general components that people usually look for in terms of your budget. And also when developing your budget, make sure you're familiar with the indirect cost of your institution, because it's very, very key. You have to know what the indirect cost of an institution is in trying to do that. The second aspect of a budget is what we call the budget narrative, or what we call the budget justification. This is very, very key because it tries to explain how you are going to spend that money. You're trying to defend those expenses. And I can tell you, if you don't defend those costs very well, it might not be supported for funding. You try to explain those details. Do not rush over this section, because in this section, you have to really demonstrate that, yes, I have thought about it well, and the estimates that I'm including are reasonable and not bloated. And this should focus on how those items will help you achieve your goals. When we look at the budget justification, we look at it and we look at, okay, are they aligned with the things that you intend to do or not? So it's very, very important. And some key tips which I have for you when trying to do your budget justification is plan early. Do not wait till the end or after writing your narrative or after writing your proposal before you start to do the budget. No, it's not done that way. For your budget, as you start off with writing your narrative, writing your methods and those sections, you have to start writing your budget alongside as well. Get an Excel sheet and start doing that as well. Make sure you describe the who, the what, the when, where, why of that budget. Look at the funding announcement. Look at the allowable costs and the non-allowable costs, because sometimes some organizations allow for some things and sometimes they don't. So plan early and don't leave this to the end. It's very, very important. And you can be surprised about how much time putting a budget together is going to take you. It's not unusual for one to have several iterations of a budget. So as you write a budget, you start to draft a budget justification at the same time as you're writing your proposal as well. And tips for things to include there is, what do you need to complete the project, right? Your team members, you have to include that. You have to describe them there. What is their role? The justification for being part of it. Oh, X, Y, and Z is a computer scientist. X, Y, and Z is an extension personnel. X, Y, and Z is a nutritionist and will work for so amount of time. There also, you describe the different things you need in trying to do that work. Okay, we are going to do some metagenomic study for this particular thing, and this amount is going to cost us for it. And I'll show an example of that soon. Publication, travel, even your travel, what kind of travel are you going on? You have to specify other specifics of all these. And keep in mind, some do have page limits. I submitted a proposal that was early this year, and our page limit for our budget justification, our budget and budget justification was just a page. A page for the budget, a page for the budget justification. That was the funding agency requirement. And I had to think, how do I do this? What did I do? Rather than writing continuous lines, I just decided to use a table, right? I just used a table. I described the resources that I needed, and I put the people who are working under each section there. In other cases, I had some paragraphs as well, and I ensured that it fitted a page. Because if it does not fit a page, the reviewers or the agency would not even pass it to the reviewers, because they usually do what we call checklists, and they want to see, did you abide with our checklist and our guideline? If we say 1 page, are you giving us 1 page or 2 pages? If you give us 2 pages, it's flagged. And I can honestly tell you, it's going to be set aside immediately, because it shows that you've not followed the rubrics or the guidelines set out. So these are key components that you think about when it comes to developing your budget. Also, you talk about the when, you include it there in your budget justification. The where, if you need to travel, you have to include all those details in your budget justification. When do you want to travel? Who wants to travel? What is the cost of that airfare? Don't just sit down and assume that the airfare is this amount. Go there, go and research it, look at what it costs to fly, look at how many days you're going to use, calculate it, and be realistic in trying to come up with it. and trying to put the why as well, but always within the limits of the funding organization. Keep in mind, sometimes they might have some exclusion. Make sure you avoid those things that they don't want in the budget. Make sure it's under the limit. And keep in mind also the funding period. I've had proposals funded for 1 year. I have proposals funded for 2 years. I have some funded for 3 years. And an example is you might have a 1 million naira budget and they want you to do that research over 1 year. Or maybe they want you to do it over 2 years. You have to think about, how do I spread out this money? How do I spread out the work given that particular amount? Because the years increase does not mean the amount is going to increase. So it's very, very important to think about that. And just additional tips as you put your budget justification together is always to follow the guideline of the agency, trying to explain as clearly as possible why it is needed. Make sure your budget justification is arranged as your budget. Don't start with personnel in your budget and start with travel in your budget justification. No, they must go line by line. Personnel, travel, materials, reagents, publication. It must align, because that shows, it helps for consistency and helps them to quickly spot if there's any error in it. And I just have some brief tips over here, of things to keep in mind when it comes to budget justification, like a checklist, and we'll just talk about a case study briefly. So, does it follow the same order as a budget? Did you explain your cost very well? Do you have allowable costs in it? And are they reasonable and allocable? You know, keep in mind the word reasonable. They are estimates. It's not the exact. They are estimates. But did you really did you really factor in those costs very well? Keep them brief, not too much. Make sure you have clear headings for each section, and make sure they are concise. Like I said, I mean, anything more than 3 pages, you don't want to do that. Keep it under that, and make sure those numbers in your budget justification and your budget, make sure they align. Okay, here is a case study that I want to share with us, and you can put your comment in the chat. Here is a case study I would like to share with us. Here is an example of a budget, and I want us to identify what we think might be wrong with this particular budget. You can put your response in the chat. What do you think might be wrong with this particular budget? Put your response in the chat and I will look at it. What do you think might be wrong with this particular budget? As a reviewer, when you look at it, what are the things that you think might be wrong with it? I'll give us like a minute. So, yeah, post what you think is wrong with this particular budget. Okay, very great. Somebody posted here and said the personnel cost is ambitious. Okay, the indirect cost. Okay, personnel cost has taken a big chunk. Okay, that's good. Somebody talked about the indirect cost of it. Okay, and most comments were on the personnel cost. Okay, well, I think these are very great responses. I would say that for this particular proposal, one of the key things that was flagged out was actually the personnel costs. Usually it depends. In some agencies have indirect costs as low as 10%, some say 15%. But this example is mainly used based on the US landscape. And for some institutions, it could be as much as 40%. But the main issue with this particular proposal was the personnel cost. One of the reviewers just said, well, I think these people are just trying to make money for themselves. That was what the comment was said. And once that person said that, it did not matter what other people have said about the quality of that work. The people overseeing this particular research, this particular review, the agencies, the people from the funding agencies, which we call program leaders in the US, immediately said, wait, don't worry, we're going to take a look at it. We are going to take a look at it again. And when we met the next day, because we met for like 4 days, when we met the next day, they came back and said, yes, we have seen it, we have reviewed it, we are going to let them know, we're going to set it aside because it was too much. And not a lot of work, not a lot of money was going towards the actual work that they wanted to do. So as I said, the participant cost dominated and insufficient funds for that activity. So it shows that these researchers did not actually think through what they proposed to do very well. So it's very, very important because mostly agencies want to see the outcome. They want to see the output. They want to see the impact on people or the work you said you want to do. Very, very important. I have an example here. It's just a small example of what could be used. Of what could be used and in this particular situation. Well, I decided to put this in error and show different rows that are there. Now, keep in mind, when I have the last one that I showed you, when I talked about the personnel cost here, most especially for this earlier example I showed you, the key personnel here were mostly the PIs, not like other participants like graduate students or like that. They're mostly the PIs in this particular situation that I shared with you. So what they want to see is if you have a lot of money going towards your students or the other people that you hire, in the US, they really like that a lot. And even for funding organizations, because they see that you are trying to train future generation. That's one of the key things that they always look out for when it comes to budgets. So in this particular situation now, the amount there for the effort under the PI for the previous example which I showed would have been 20%, and this might be other personnel which will be shown in that particular budget justification. I'll soon be wrapping up, but I just want to touch on just some key things when it comes to budget justification. Make sure that you are specific. Try as much as possible. Go in, look at the cost of those things. How much is per diem? How much is a meal? If it's 4 days you're traveling for, do those calculations. It's very important to do those calculations. This is an example of a round trip, and this typically you can write it in words, right? You can write it in words, but you can first start with a table in an Excel to help you out. That way, you have taken care of the different aspects of what you need. If I am reviewing and I see a breakdown like this, I know that, okay, the PI did a good job. I'm not interested in the amount that they've quoted for how much the fare will be, because we all know it's going to change. They are estimates, but they are reasonable, right? The visa cost reasonable. Per diem is reasonable. The per diem is not $1,000. It's reasonable when you're trying to put it together. So very, very important to factor that in when you're dealing with it. And here is an example of a budget justification. Here I have 2 examples. One is a weak justification and one is a strong justification. In the first one, the PI just said, okay, well, we are requesting 2.8 million to travel for X, Y, and Z. That's just all. And here, the PI here went ahead to break it down. Okay, we are traveling. We have 4 sites visited by 4 staff in northern Nigeria. We are going to collect this and we're going to spend this amount, and this amount we're going to use, and we have one international trip for this. And you have that breakdown that is there to show that estimates. So that way, when they see this, they'll, okay, yes, this person thought of it very well in trying to put it together. It helps them to give, it has credibility to what you propose to do. Okay, somebody has asked me to show the table which I showed earlier. I want to make sure I got the table right as I wrap up. If this was the table that was being referred to. Was it this table you're referring to?
Correct, sir.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this was the table I was referring to. And I just have some key elements in here. Not everything is totally in this particular place. But I just wanted to, the essence of me showing this table was just to point out these particular incidents that happened. And honestly, I felt bad for those investigators because they had a good work that they had written there. But one reviewer just stood up and said, there were 3 reviewers for this particular work, and one reviewer as part of the panel said, I observed that this is it for the budget. And because of that, they just moved it aside. Okay, as I wrap up, I've given an example of what a strong budget justification should look like, and it's a key component. It might look very minute and not very interesting, but I honestly tell you, it is used to evaluate the thoughtfulness of any investigator on the work they want to carry out. It's used to evaluate the feasibility and the demonstrability of their work. As a wrap up, I just want to mention some things that when writing a proposal, make sure that you clearly state why it is important. Make sure it aligns with the priority of that agency. Make sure what you want to do is manageable. Do not be overambitious, like some of the examples that I've shown earlier, that I also was in that situation when trying to write it out, being overambitious and not being clear. And make sure the budget mirrors what you want to do. Now, it's very difficult for reviewers to advocate for you if your project is not clear or your budget does not match your methods, or you exceed that scope of time, or your team or something is wrong there and you just want to get people on it because you like them. You know, it's very, very important. Make sure it's very, very clear as you write it. And some few points I just want to leave us with is just to mention that when panelists, when reviewers, when they look at the work, they actually reward clarity. It's good to have some complexity there, that's fine, but they require more clarity. Like the one I had written then, it was so complex. I'm like, okay, we don't understand what you've written here very well. They want clarity there. They want budget sometimes decides between the good and the bad, especially as we enter a landscape of where it's more competitive and with NGOs or international organizations. And also a strong proposal will anticipate that where will my reviewer be confused? How can I make it clear for them, right? So make sure it aligns very well. And I ended by saying that our work is to, you want to impress reviewers, but at the same time, you want to help them to advocate for you if your work is well written and your team is well comprised. To end my talk, I would like to thank the different agencies that have funded what I've done, because what I'm sharing today is from the feedback and the opportunity that I've had to be a panel member, and also for my proposals to be reviewed by these different agencies. And also, I want to thank my collaborators from different fields that I've worked with. Without them, I would have not had success in having some proposals funded. And there's so much that I could not put all their names, but they're from different fields in animal science, nutrition, human sciences, computer science, policy, crop science, different fields that I've worked with. They have made it possible for me to achieve the different successes that I've had with my different proposals, as well as the agencies and the opportunity to serve as part of a panel. Thank you very much, and I'll welcome questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atoloye. That was a very nice one. We appreciate you very much. Thank you. We are grateful. If you have question, please, you can put it in the chat box. I would like to quickly use this time to appreciate the presence of our alumni. Dr. Ogunjemi Lua, you are welcome. Thank you very much. Professor Abolaji Dada, we appreciate your presence. Everyone, I appreciate everyone, all our alumni. Dr. Ayanshola, we appreciate you. Dr. Oluseyi Jegede, we appreciate you. If there are some others I didn't notice, we really appreciate you. Thank you very much. Dr. Bayo Olugbemi, we appreciate you so much. Thank you for participating. Everybody, we appreciate everybody. Now, do we now have questions in the chat? Or you can raise your hand if you have question.
So, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, I can also see our big oga to Professor Kamaru Oladipo.
Oh,
He has been with us.
you are
Yes.
welcome, sir. Thank you, sir. We
Prof,
appreciate
thank
you,
you,
sir.
sir.
We appreciate you so much.
Then Professor Dada from FUTA also.
Yes.
I
We
see.
appreciate you. If you have question, please raise your hand. While we are waiting, okay, we have a question here. What should be an ideal percentage allocated to the dissemination of research outputs? What should be an ideal percentage allocated to dissemination of research outputs?
Thank you very much for that question. And at the percentage of what should be allocated to dissemination of research output. First, I would say that it depends on what you term as the dissemination of research outputs. If your goal is to have meeting with farmers, for example, I do a lot of work with working with farmers, working with people out in the community. If your goal is to do that kind of work with them, then you want to put in a substantial amount towards that. If your goal is to perhaps say you want to publish in journal open access, or you want to attend conferences, the percentage which you're going to allocate will be much lesser compared to when you want to engage more with an external audience. So it depends with what the categories of those dissemination are actually. For an example would be if I have like let's say like a 300,000 USD research grant, I could easily put maybe 5,000 there in publications only. And I could allocate out of that 300, I could put like 15,000 in my travel to conferences. Keeping in mind my other indirect costs, because here in this situation now, like I mentioned earlier, it depends on the indirect cost of the institution, and it depends on how much people are going to attend. But I would not allow the cost that I'll put under that place for that dissemination, if I'm not working a lot with external audiences, to be greater than what I have in my materials and methods, or what I have in supporting personnel or graduate students, if allowed, if allowable. In the US, there is a lot of room for supporting graduate students, supporting technicians, supporting other personnel. So they want to see more of that. And also with your materials and methods, they want to see a lot of that. And in this situation, I wouldn't allow my cost for those conferences or publications to be exorbitant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you have a question, you can raise your hand. Dr. Dayo Gumberu, I acknowledge your presence. Thank you for participating. There is no more question in the chat box. So I would like to ask two of our alumni to share their experiences. Two minutes, just two minutes. Professor Abolaji Dada, would like to listen to you. Are you still in the call? Professor Dada?
Thank you, and thanks for the privilege of listening to an expert. I've equally learned a lot here, and well, I want to appreciate the HiSP for this opportunity to share in the knowledge of an experienced researcher, especially outside the shore of Nigeria. Well, a number of things have been said, especially a lot of attention is paid to the aspect of budgeting. And then I think our presenter have done a justice to that. And one of the reasons why I had the question on what percentage is ideal to be allocated to dissemination, which our presenter has actually addressed, is the fact that for our whole national research fund here, you are not supposed to exceed 3%. And he was able to answer that clearly, that it also depends on what exactly. For instance, if you are going to organize a expert forum, or you want to organize a meeting for stakeholders, attention will be paid to where they are located within and outside the country, and so on and so forth. That has been done. So I want to say that in addition to what our presenter has said, our experience in the past, especially in our own institution here, is the fact that we also pay a lot of attention to gender inclusion. Of course, we should know also that whatever research that we are engaging at this particular time, we must pay a whole lot of attention to that. And another thing is that we need a lot of networking. I'm aware that a number of us, we bear me witness that this week, Monday, we have a close of a research, a call for expression of interest by the World Bank on bridge research. And one of the requests in that expression of interest is that outside your own institution, you stand advantage as an institution when you have good collaboration with institutions within and outside the country. So as a researcher, whether we are young or we are the middle or we are already experienced, it's better for us to make sure that we continually build networking and collaboration with those that are outside our institution, those that are outside. At the point that I was asked to lead, my institution asked me to lead in one of those expressions of interest in Cluster D. There was the need for us to, identify institutions outside the country and within the country. And because of some of the collaborations and the networking that one had in the past, it was so easy for one to make contact with one or two. So in sum, what I'm saying in essence is that as a researcher, we don't have the monopoly of knowledge, and we have to learn every day at every point in time. One of the ways is that we must continually collaborate and network with researchers beyond the shore of our own institution. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you very much, my professor. God bless you. So here we come to the end of the workshop. We want to appreciate our guest lecturer once again. We appreciate you so much, Dr. Idowu Atoloye. We are looking forward to having you again and again. God bless you. Thank you, all our participants. Here we draw the curtain on
Thank you very much.
Program. God bless you all.
Yeah. Thank you,
Dr.
ma.
ID,
God bless
thank
you,
you
ma'am.
for your time.
Thank you.
That
God
was
bless
a
you,
good
ma'am.
one.
Daddy.
Thank you so much. I'm back.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah,
Mama.
thank you very much, sir. I
The
appreciate you.
recording will be available by tomorrow. We'll let you know.
All
The
right,
recording
thank
will
you.
be available so you can play it back.
All right,
Thank you.
So
God
much.
bless
Thank you.
you.
Dr. Bayo Lugbemi, thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Dr.
Bye-bye.
Bayo, sir, thank you for coming. We appreciate you, sir.